On a crisp autumn morning, a courtroom buzzed with anticipation, but few could have guessed that what was about to unfold would unravel a city's simmering tensions and expose a shocking chapter in a saga of misunderstanding, pain, and unyielding conviction. When the dust settled, a woman wielding her authority like a weapon hurled a demand so extreme, so cruel, that it echoed through the halls of justice. The death penalty for a disabled child. And she had no idea who she was really confronting. Imagine a scene straight out of a nightmare. A courtroom packed with spectators, legal officials, and press awaiting resolution. But amid the hushed whispers, one voice shattered the silence. An angry woman, clutching a paper, eyes blazing with a fury that transcended reason. Her words cut through the court like a blade. She demanded justice. In her mind, a justice so harsh, so barbaric, it left no doubt that she saw a different universe from everyone else. That woman was a member of the HOA, Homeowners Association, an unlikely figure to stir such chaos. But her presence here was no ordinary HOA dispute. This was a woman convinced that a child's disability justified her radical judgment. She was certain that her call for the ultimate punishment was righteous. What she didn't realize, what no one in that courtroom could have anticipated, was that her adversary was not what he appeared to be on the surface. This is the story of a man, an ordinary man, whose life was wrenched apart by a confrontation that spiraled into something far darker. It's about how a woman's blind anger, fueled by ignorance and prejudice, collided with a father's quiet resilience and unshakable love for his son. And it's a tale that challenges us all. How well do we really see the people around us? How far can misunderstanding go before it becomes irreversible? The story begins with a simple truth. The man, the father of the disabled boy, had always tried to blend into the background. A modest guy, working hard, caring deeply for his son's well-being. His son, a bright and lovable child with a disability, faced challenges every day that others wouldn't understand unless they walked in their shoes. For years, the father kept a low profile, until the day the HOA member's suspicion turned dark. It started innocently enough, a dispute over lawn maintenance, a skipped HOA meeting, a neighborly tiff. But in her eyes, this innocent frustration morphed into something sinister. She saw the boy's condition as a flaw, a stain on her suburban paradise, and perhaps, most disturbingly, she convinced herself that harsher measures were justified. Her rallying cry grew louder, fueled by misinformation, rumors, and a disturbing lack of empathy. Then came the fateful day in court. She stood, voice trembling with rage, and declared that the boy's existence was an offense, a burden on society. She demanded that the court impose the death penalty on a child with a disability. The words stunned everyone, doctors, lawyers, the father himself. Yet she pressed on, unwavering in her conviction. What secrets did she hold? What hatred or misunderstanding had festered beneath her HOA badge that drove her to such extremes? Few would have predicted that the man sitting before her was not the enemy she presumed him to be. In fact, the father had kept a secret, one that would turn everything upside down. For years, he had concealed a truth about his son's condition, not out of shame, but out of a desperate attempt to protect his child from prejudice. His son was not just disabled. He carried a diagnosis that was rare, misunderstood, and often stigmatized. As the courtroom drama intensified, a sudden twist emerged. It was revealed that the HOA woman had misjudged not just the man, but the entire situation. She had no idea who she was really challenging. The man she accused of being a threat was a former teacher, a coach, someone who dedicated his life to nurturing vulnerable children, ensuring they had a voice, something she had failed to see. The court's proceedings turned into a detective story, an unraveling of motives, misconceptions, and unspoken truths. The woman's demand for the death penalty was not just an extreme outburst, it was a reflection of her own blind spots, her ignorance about the real life of the boy, about the father's unwavering love, and about the resilience of the human spirit. In the unraveling, it became clear that this case was more than a courtroom dispute. It was a mirror held up to society, a mirror showing how easy it is to judge from afar, to demonize those who are different, and to forget the profound dignity of every human life, no matter the challenges faced. But perhaps the most sobering part of this story is the aftermath. The courtroom decision, the media frenzy, the community's divided opinions, all overshadowed by a simple question. How did we get here? How did a woman so consumed by her own misconceptions come to demand such a brutal punishment? And what does it say about us, about society's capacity for compassion, understanding, and change? In the quiet hours after the chaos, the father stayed by his son's side. He knew that justice wasn't served by vengeance or hatred, but by truth and empathy. He had learned that sometimes the greatest victory is simply surviving, holding on to. So, as this story concludes, one thing remains crystal clear. Behind every headline, every courtroom drama is a human story. Complex, painful, and painfully honest. It reminds us that judgments made in anger, fueled by ignorance, can have irreversible consequences. But it also offers a glimmer of hope that understanding, compassion, and resilience can forge a different path forward. Because in the end, we are all more than the labels we wear, more than the mistakes we make, and more than the hate we are capable of. And sometimes, the most unexpected heroes emerge from the chaos, reminding us that beneath every conflict lies a chance for redemption. And amidst the fallout, one truth remains undeniable. No child, regardless of disability or circumstance, deserves to be judged by the worst moments of others' ignorance. They deserve life, dignity, and a future shaped by love, not hatred. As the days turned into weeks after that fateful court session, the story didn't fade into obscurity. Instead, it ignited a flame that refused to be extinguished. Social media erupted with debates, articles, and personal stories, some heartfelt, others angry, each adding another layer to this already complicated tapestry. The case became a rallying cry for advocates of disabled rights, challenging communities to confront their own prejudices and misunderstandings. But amid the noise, one question persisted in the quiet corners of the courtroom and the hearts of those involved. How could a misunderstanding escalate so far? How could someone, an ordinary HOA member, seemingly just a concerned neighbor, be so consumed by her own perceptions that she would threaten a child's life? The answer, surprisingly, wasn't rooted in malice alone, but in a deeper societal failure. A failure to see, truly see, the humanity behind the labels and diagnoses. Uncovering more layers of this story reveals a web of systemic issues. Lack of education about disabilities, deeply ingrained stereotypes, and the ease with which fear morphs into hatred. The woman's outburst was not born in a vacuum. It was the inevitable product of a society that often marginalizes, dismisses, and misunderstands vulnerability. Her demand for the death penalty, a punishment so extreme it belongs to a different era, highlighted how far we still must go in fostering empathy and awareness. But what if her actions, extreme as they were also the symptom of something else? What if, beneath her anger, there was a tragic story of pain, personal, communal, or societal, that pushed her over the edge? A moment of crisis that revealed a gaping wound rather than pure evil. Sometimes the most terrifying monsters we face are not those born outright evil, but the shadows lurking within us all. Fear, ignorance, the refusal to understand what's different. The father, the man whose calmness and resilience often went unnoticed, had a story of his own, one that shed light on the roots of his unwavering love and his quiet strength. He had grown up in a small town where disability was seen as a curse, a flaw to be hidden away. His own experiences with rejection and misunderstanding had shaped his worldview. When his son was born with his condition, he vowed never to let society's prejudices define his family's future. He worked tirelessly to ensure his son received the best possible care, education, and love. His steadfastness became a silent protest against the ignorance that threatened to swallow them whole. He understood that fighting fire with fire, hatred with hatred, only feeds the cycle. Instead, he chose compassion, patience, and unwavering hope. His story was one of quiet rebellion, an act of defiance in a world quick to judge and condemn. Yet the courtroom drama forced him into the spotlight, exposing his private pain to the world. Suddenly he was being scrutinized, vilified by those who couldn't see beyond their own prejudices. It was a crucible that tested his faith not just in the system, but in humanity itself. And in that crucible, he found an even deeper resolve to tell his son's story, to challenge the stereotypes, and to stand firm in the face of hatred. Meanwhile, the court's decision, initially overshadowed by the woman's outrageous demand, began to shift. Legal experts and mental health professionals weighed in, emphasizing how dangerous it was to conflate a child's disability with criminal intent, let alone propose such an inhumane punishment. They pointed out that justice must be rooted in facts, compassion, and understanding, not hysteria and prejudice. But that didn't stop the woman's supporters from rallying around her. Some believed her fears stemmed from genuine concern, twisted by misinformation. Others saw her as a symbol of a larger problem: fear of the unknown, inability to accept difference, a society that still struggles with empathy. And perhaps she was, in her own misguided way, a mirror reflecting the collective struggles of a community grappling with change. This conflict raised critical questions. How do communities confront their own biases? How do legal systems ensure justice without falling prey to mob mentality? How can society better educate and integrate those with disabilities so they aren't seen as threats, but as valued members? The answers aren't simple, nor are they easy. But what's clear is that education, compassion, and open dialogue are the only way forward. As the story unfolded, the father took it upon himself to speak out. He shared his experiences, his fears, his hopes, and his unwavering love for his son. He became an advocate, traveling beyond his community, speaking at forums and schools. His message was clear: every child deserves dignity. Every parent, every family deserves respect. No one has the right to decide who lives or dies based on fear or ignorance. In a way, his stand became a quiet rebellion against the darkness that almost consumed them. Sometimes, courage isn't loud or dramatic. It's persistent, relentless, and rooted in love. It's about choosing hope in a world that often seems intent on crushing it. Meanwhile, the court's proceedings continued, with legal battles, expert testimonies, and emotional pleas swirling in a tense dance. The judge, a seasoned arbiter of justice, had to navigate the storm with steady resolve. As he contemplated the verdict, he looked beyond the courtroom walls, toward a society that desperately needs to confront its own demons. The verdict finally came, not with a bang, but with a quiet, resolute affirmation of human dignity. Justice was served not by yielding to hysteria, but by upholding the fundamental rights of a child and recognizing the humanity in every person, regardless of their condition. Yet even as the courtroom emptied and the wheels of justice turned, the real work was just beginning. The community, the families, the individuals, all had to grapple with the lessons learned from this harrowing chapter. It was a call to action, to educate, to empathize, and to ensure that such a tragedy never happens again. In conclusion, this story isn't just about a courtroom scandal. It's about us, how we treat the most vulnerable among us, and whether we have the courage to confront our fears and prejudices head on. It's a reminder that compassion isn't just a lofty ideal, but a necessity for a society that claims to value human life. And as we move forward, we must ask ourselves, what kind of future do we want to build? A future where hatred and misunderstanding reign, or one where love, understanding, and justice prevail? The choice, like so many others, lies in our hands. The story of the man, the boy, and the woman is a reflection of that choice, one that echoes in every corner of our shared humanity. Because in the end, true justice isn't just about punishment or laws. It's about recognizing the sacredness of every life and refusing to let fear blind us to that truth.